Hey,
Here we
Mo.
are.
Hey,
Hey,
Mo.
Ricky.
The doctor is in.
The doctor is indeed in, and it's a good day for this doctor when I get to talk about things like miracles, right? Because
Yeah.
not enough of the medical community really likes to, I think, acknowledge and talk about the miracles that we see every day and the hope of survivorship. You know, when we talk about breast cancer for Black women, the numbers and the statistics and all those things overshadow the stories and the real life experience of so many of us. And it is just as varied as we are in shade and complexion and height and weight and everything else, right? Our experiences are all different. So we're going to talk about it today.
I know. And we can talk about the bad numbers in a minute but these women have defied the odds, and they are just like sheroes that we don't often see. And they're here to give us hope, So probably, what day is it? It's Wednesday. I think this week alone, I have talked to 5, 20 and early 30-year-old breasties, brand new breasties with triple negative, two metastatic. And so when we hear these stories and we like, the first thing I thought about this week was, oh my gosh, you got to meet these, you got to watch our show and meet these amazing women who are now 28 and 45 years, going on the next year, right? So today we have Miss Suley and her daughter, 45-year survivor, 45 years, Mo, 45. And her daughter, Julie, and they're going to talk about her story and then also a book that she's written, which we have a surprise for our audience today. And Miss Pearl, who literally just called me out of the blue one day and said, I see you're doing a bunch of events. Do you need help? Can I come and help you? And she just showed up at Ubiquitous a couple of weeks ago and helped us out. So, and Julie, actually, I met through, she saw an article in the Cincinnati Herald. The Cincinnati Herald, the publisher, is my Dartmouth roommate, Jan Lemon Kearney. And so she always writes whatever she publishes whatever we write, thank God for her, so we can always get in a newspaper somewhere. But we're so glad you guys are here. We want to hear your stories. And I'm going to go on mute a little bit. I'm in a crazy hotel in California, but let's go. Who wants to go first and tell their story? How about Miss Suley? How'd you get 45 years of this craziness?
Thank you. My name is Suley Gooden Spencer. I'm 45-year survivor.
Yay.
I was diagnosed on the 1st of November. And I had the surgery on the 17th of November, which was my anniversary. And so everything worked out well for my surgery and everything. And it so happened that my employee, my boss, she had surgery on Monday. I had surgery on Tuesday. She had the left removed, I had the right removed. And so
What year was that?
That was in 1976 that I had the surgery. We both had surgery in the same hospital, same doctor, but at that time.
Wow. Miss Suley, let me interrupt and ask you a question. Did they take all the lymph nodes from under your arm as well at that time?
Most of the lymph nodes, yes, because since then I haven't been able to use my right arm for blood work, anything. And when I had to have surgery, that's why they put the port in now, because the left arm has say I'm tired. They've stuck me too many times already. And so they put the port in, that way I didn't have to go through, every time to get ahead of myself. In 2002, I had a lumpectomy. And Julie always said the Lord was tired of my same old story, so he wanted me to have a new story. So that's why I had the second. And then I had lymphoma, non-Hodgkin lymphoma. That I had to have chemo. And that's when they put the port in for that. But other than that, I had radiation after the lumpectomy, but I didn't have to have radiation or chemo after the first surgery. But then, talking 45, almost 45 years ago, they wasn't doing too much. They was doing mostly, my employee, she had cobalt. She had cancer before, and they did her treatment called cobalt or something similar to that. And but with me, I didn't have to have, and I was back at work and doing fine, and just trying to live for my girls. I have two daughters. And I guess that's the big part of the story right now.
Wow. Wow. So you didn't have to do chemo just the first 2 times you had treatment?
No, first 2 times I didn't have to have chemo, but I had to have 42 treatments of radiation for the lumpectomy. So, but I didn't have chemo, but I had radiation.
Yeah,
How did you know you had breast cancer? Did you have a lump? Did you like?
Yeah, I found that, and that's why it's so important to have early detection. And I had examined myself, my monthly exam. I examined myself, and I thought you don't want to say you found anything. So I asked my husband, I say, "Will you see, do you feel anything right there?" He thought, "No, I don't feel anything." And so I called my doctor, and they told me, we could see you in 2 weeks. So I wasn't in no hurry to see the doctor. So, but in 2 weeks I went to see the doctor, and I said, I'm not going to tell him here, I just wanted an exam. And so, and I said, if he find it, then it's for real. And so when he felt it, and I was looking up at his face, as he examined me, and he said, "How long you knew that was there, Suli?" And I say, 2 weeks ago when I called and made the appointment. And he said, "You just not here?" I said, "But that's when they gave me the appointment." And he said, to come here when you first found it. No, I wasn't sure. So it might be gone in 2 weeks. And so, so then I went to the surgeon, and my employee, she told me that make an appointment with the surgeon for her, and she went that Wednesday. She went that Friday, and after she went, then I took her to the hospital on Sunday. I went in on Monday. She had surgery on Monday. I had surgery on Tuesday with the same doctor.
Wow. Wow.
And at that time, most of the doctors, they did, now you have all these specialists, but if you had he also took my appendix out. So he was the same.
It was like your general practitioner, just a surgeon. Right?
General surgeon.
Surgeon.
Believe it or not, 80% of breast cancer surgery in this country is still done by general surgeons. There aren't enough of us who specialize in breast cancer surgery. And, to hear you talk, we talk a lot about clinical trials and research and studies. And, some of the things that we have done continue to work. Like the surgery you had, they call it a modified radical mastectomy. They take the whole breast and all the lymph nodes, because back then we didn't know you could check the lymph nodes and maybe take 1 or 2. We thought you had to take them all, but it saved you from needing, radiation at that time, where, your coworker ended up needing that radiation. That cobalt radiation just celebrated the 60th anniversary or so, and they still use that radiation to this day. So there's been some really interesting, actually it's cobalt radiation about 80 years old, and we have all kinds of new radiation now, but in some parts of the world, that's all they have access to, and it still works and they're still using it. So thank God for your story, and that you're still here to be able to talk about it, and then for it to recur in the other breast, right, and have to get the lumpectomy is something. Tell us a little bit about how you felt getting it again. Did it sink in? Did you feel like this was inevitable, or was it like something totally different?
It was different because, well, when I went to the doctor, and the doctor, the surgeon, he went out of town. So he had his associate, I guess. And they did the biopsy. And then they were supposed to let me know Monday morning what the results was. And he never called. He would, and my daughter at that time lived in St. Louis. So Julie would call him, she called, and he really wasn't a doctor with bedside manner.
Mm.
So when I think he was angry because she called, I had called, and I was apprehensive, nervous too, when he called me and he said, yes, I got your results back and it's cancer. That's just the way he told me. And it's cancer. I said, I just wanted to know what the results was because I know who the cancer doctor is. And so
hello, thank you, God. Hello.
So that and after I talked to my surgeon, he told me, and I told him what had happened, and he really was, he said, Suli, I'm sorry you had to go through that, and and Julie is one. She is Rick just said she's not gonna let you go. She's just gonna keep after it, and so you're gonna tell my mama something today. And so I don't know why.
Yeah. So Ricky, if I would add one piece, I would say you have to be persistent
Yes.
and determined in your health care,
Yes.
right? You can't ever let their convenience be your convenience. This is urgent matter. We
Right.
need to know every day matters. And so that's when you need the village that we've been very fortunate in a big family to have, to be around and can speak when maybe the patient can't speak for themselves, because sometimes it's a little more than you actually could even bear and the
Right.
words just don't come. So someone else needs to speak on your behalf to
Right.
ensure that we know what we're dealing with and that the actions are things that align with what you want. And so it's good to have family, whether it's the daughter that speaks up or the sister or the grandma, whoever it is that's in your corner. Everybody needs a village to be in their corner, winning a fight for your health and for your life.
We do. We say no one fights alone. No one
Yes.
fight alone. You can't. So what were you thinking during all this? Like, how old were you? How are you dealing with all this?
So I was 10 at the first time. And so they called it the big C, but they didn't,
Right.
no one in the family told you what was really going on. All I know is everybody seemed to descend on our little town. And so something big had to be happening. And my mom disappears for days. And so people were crying. So I truly didn't know the severity of it. I just know they weren't talking about it, right? So know something is going on. And then when my mom came home, there weren't support groups, but I remember she had this like rope that she would do over the door to try to learn to lift her arm and get mobility back in it. And so we had different games that we would play with her. And I've even told my sister, we probably weren't the best daughters because, we were right at that puberty stage.
Yeah.
And so if we're being fully transparent, there was some free boobs in the house. You didn't have to use tissue, right? Because you could put something in it really look like something, right? So at 10, I wasn't good.
Oh
so
my
it was,
goodness.
you had some boobs. All my mom kept saying was, don't use my good prosthesis, right? So,
Oh my
don't
goodness.
pay for the one that costs money.
Julie,
So
this is
yes,
bringing back memories. My grandmother
Yes.
had breast cancer too, and I was about 12 years old. And she too had she had the cotton prostheses around the house. Then she started using money, and I'd give her a hug and her breasts would be crunchy, and we didn't know why her breasts were crunchy, but that's a different story.
Right. So
That's
you
so-
understand what I'm saying. So at 10, can't say I understood and probably wasn't sensitive, given that my mom was 37, 38. So really we weren't the best of daughters, but the second time around, I was older, I was married, I had my own kids.
Right.
So I was very clear about what we were going through. But I was also gracious that God cared enough to allow me to become a woman and have my mother there, right? So now I knew what we were going to potentially go through. I had read up because now I'm also doing my own exams. My sister's doing her exams. So more knowledgeable, not fearful, But being with a woman of faith, I figured we got this because we both know a little bit more and we can stand on the word a little stronger. So, but I wasn't good probably at 10. I was probably the child you like, oh, she made me cry.
But you also, you didn't talk about it, you
No.
know? So many families don't talk about the big C, and Mo had a similar experience too. She didn't even know her mother died until she was 30,
Oh my.
right?
And they didn't want you to tell anybody if you had surgery,
Exactly.
tell anybody that what kind of surgery you had. So you can't tell anybody that they done cut one of your, you know.
True. Yeah,
Right.
she went, my mother had gone into the hospital and well, she didn't quite make it out. She was 29, but my grandmother went in for, about a week or so, and we didn't know all of what was going on. And she came home and, we saw some bandages, and they kind of kept us really far away from what was happening until she got it a second time in the other breast. And then we were a little bit older and able to understand a little more of what was going on, but it was very, very secretive. And, that's part of the challenge, I think, in our families, is that we don't like to talk about these things. And it certainly wasn't encouraged back then, but, we just didn't know enough, I think, about our health, and we weren't comfortable sharing that information. It was private, it was personal.
Right, right.
And now it's a different story.
Now it's a different story. Thank God for that, right? All right, so Miss Pearl, you've been quiet back there, so tell us your story.
Well, as I mentioned, I'm a 28-year survivor. And so I was 29 and a half years old, a very young person. My son was about 3.5. I had only been married about 5 years. So everything was new and everything was happening so quick in my life. I had found a lump underneath my armpit, and then I noticed my breast had a lump. And I had my late husband to look at it, and he also thought it was a lump as well. It was time for my yearly gynecologist exam. I mentioned it to my doctor at that time, who was Dr. Lamar Tyler, which was a phenomenal doctor. And he really walked me through the process. He didn't shove it off. He actually said, women between your age group, 15 and 30, typically have what we call a benign tumor. But let's have it checked out to make sure, everything is benign. So he had me to have a mammogram. And the mammogram did come back showing fuzziness, some cloudiness. So after that, he had me to do an ultrasound. And the ultrasound showed, once again, showed some cloudiness, fuzziness. They did what we call a targeted ultrasound, targeted that particular area where the lump was located. And so there was an appointment made for what we call a targeted needle biopsy in that area. And that when the pathology report came back, it did show cancer cells. I knew that there was something going on. I hadn't been feeling like myself. I was very tired and lethargic, just drained. The type of drain where you wake up tired and you lay down tired. So once they remove partial of the tumor from the needle biopsy, I started to feel better then. So I knew that was the reason for my not feeling good, And so then from there, I went on and I trusted, and I knew that there was something. I didn't need a second or third opinion, because I knew that was the cause of what was going on. So I ended up having stage 2B breast cancer, which was early stage, not too late. Thank God for that. I did end up having 4 rounds of strong dosage of chemotherapy, which was Aegis and Myerson, I believe. Back then, it's been so long ago, which I believe they call a red devil or something now.
Devil, Adriamycin, yeah, we all hate that thing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then I think it was coupled with Taxol. So it was really strong dosage, but thank God it worked on me. And if it didn't work, we know that he was behind that. And and I have not had any reoccurrence. I did have a mastectomy. I opted not to do reconstruction. I was not, one surgery was good enough for me. And I shared it with my late husband. He told me, you do what's best for you, because I just need you here. We need you here. And I needed to be here. And so for me, I'm not a vain person. I like looking nice, looking good, but that didn't define me, and it still doesn't define me, because I certainly could have went back and got reconstruction. But for me, I'm good. I'm really good. And I'm happy at the choice I made. And I tell women, there's no one fits all approach. You have to do what's best for you.
Right.
And so with that, I have not had any reoccurrence. To God be the glory. I'm healthier. In fact, my life is better. I found my purpose in all this. You know, I don't know if anybody want to have to go through breast cancer to find their purpose, but I certainly did find my purpose.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and I've been, I mean, it's been a wonderful journey, and I don't wish this on anyone, but I can say through it all, it's been a great journey. You know, of course, when you get the diagnosis, you're like, okay, what do I need to do to stay alive? And I'm just praying and asking God, Lord, just have your way. I know that but you know, I really felt in my heart that this was not unto death. I felt that it just had me to regroup in different ways. It really laid out my future plans for my life. There has just been some just phenomenal opportunities that have come in my life, meeting great people, serving great people. I just cannot begin to tell you. My life was great already, but this just added another different type of greatness. I've been just been able to meet and help so many wonderful people along the way. And that's what it's about, just helping people. I mean, our purpose is to help people. And when we find it out, that's what we have to do, go to work and really live out that purpose. Since then, I've served on the American Cancer Society board, and I still serve on that board. I'm doing fundraisers, raising funds for research, just really active in that area. I used to do all their train all the trainers to go out and to be able to talk to newly diagnosed patients. So I did that for a long time. And then just eventually got on the board. And I've worked in certainly different, helped out in different areas as it relates to breast cancer. I've worked in a hospital. I was that person who coordinated appointments for patients, made sure they got set up with the right type of mammogram, whether it be diagnostic or screening or ABIS, what we call automatic breast ultrasound for those women who have dense breasts. I mean, I've been behind the scenes doing so many things as it relates to that, setting up appointments for biopsies and things of that nature, helping out on that end, working with the nurses and doctors. So just a lot of background in this area in terms of helping and assisting that I probably would not have did had I not gone through it. I mean, we just, you know, always doing walks, always just really here in my area, just really supporting the cause. And I'm grateful.
And now you're an untouchable, our newest untouchable.
Yes, yes. And I'm excited.
Too.
Yes, and I'm so excited about all the things that we have planned and all the, you know, the itinerary, and I'm just excited, just so excited. And I mean, the ubiquitous conference was just, I'm still lavishing in that.
We talked to about 1,000 Black women at this hair show, Mo, and gave out a lot of bags, had a lot of conversations, and we had a great breasty crew there. So, you know, part of our When We Trial movement. But I just wanted to put these ladies in perspective with the data. Okay. So these women are miracles. This doesn't happen, you know, and I know I am too. You know, I'll be 11 years on September 21st.
Wow.
You know, so actually that's next Wednesday. So we'll have a party, Mo.
I love it.
That is
Yeah, my
awesome.
doctor gave me 2 and I'm on 11, but here's what the data says. You know, we talk about this data all the time, but when you see this Hope here, it just puts all this into perspective. You know, again, we have a 41% higher mortality rate than white women. We're 41% more likely to die. That means that if 100 white women die of breast cancer, 141 Black women die. Isn't that crazy, right? In 2019, breast cancer became the leading cause of cancer death for Black women, right? And we know, and Mo, you're seeing this every day, it's going to get worse with COVID because so many people didn't get their mammograms, didn't get screened, and Mo's seeing it right now with bigger tumors, more advanced stages, more mets and stuff. So, but our 5-year survival rate overall is lower overall, and it's lower at every stage of disease. So people who are diagnosed with stage 1, 2, 3, 4 have a lower survival rate than white women. About 82% of Black women live 5 years after their initial diagnosis, compared to 92% of white women. So that's crazy, right? And we know that a lot of these disparities really are a bunch of factors. I mean, you know, we're diagnosed at, you know, we're less likely to be diagnosed at early stages, right? 57% in Black women compared to 67% in white women. Black women are more likely to be diagnosed with stage 3 disease, 24%, and a higher grade tumor, 65%. Crazy. Black women have a 30% higher incidence of triple negative breast cancer. So almost a third of our breast cancers are triple negative. And we know that the highest mortality rates, the most aggressive disease, and the least treatment options, and the only breast cancer subtype that doesn't have a drug to prevent recurrence. And we're getting it, right? And then also inflammatory breast cancer. Those numbers are getting worse for Black women. So we know that our disease is different, and we have to, that's why we're working so hard to do our When We Trial movement to get more Black women into clinical trials. And because of the work that we're doing, we're now up to 3,700 Black women have been sent to clinical trial because of our program. So, you know, but
you know what people don't realize that is that if we were already being screened later and being diagnosed later, and there were delays related to a lot of different factors, COVID made everything worse. And we're seeing that now on the back end because the pendulum initially swung and nobody was coming in. And, you know, that's fine. That's what we told people to do, erroneously, of course, because people didn't know the difference between screening and diagnostic either. You had a lump, you had nipple discharge, you had a mass under your arm, and you said, well, they told me don't go in, instead of getting that diagnostic test done. But now everything is delayed. Biopsies are 2 to 3 weeks out across the country. MRIs are delayed at least 3 weeks across the country. Surgeries are pushed back into 2-3 month intervals to get to see to get to your surgery date, especially if you have plastic surgery. There are some significant delays that are happening right now. We ran out of contrast dye for CAT scans and MRIs. And guess what? All of that stuff makes a bad situation even worse. And it's why it's so important for us to get back to screening, to stay up on our screening, and to do those exams. Like Miss Suley said, Mrs. Suley, I really appreciate that you said, you know, I did my exam and I felt my breasts, and I did it all the time, because even the doctors are like this. They're telling people to do them, don't do them. Be aware of your breasts, do your no, don't do your self-exam. And they're scaring people. And I think that there's a lot of misinformation going on right now. So, you know, if a young woman comes to you for advice, what do you tell her to do about her body and her exams and mammograms and all those things? What's your advice to women who are watching?
I don't know if that question is for Suley, but I'm going to answer.
Ma'am.
I'm on we have it at our church, a cancer group that I'm a member of. And if anybody think anything wrong, go talk to Miss Spencer. And not only at my church, but in our small city, Dania Beach, go talk to Miss Spencer. You would think I knew what I don't know, but I tried it.
You know it, girl.
And I get them to the person they should talk to. And one of my friends is in the hospital now. I had been to the hospital to have my a yearly exam. She was going for a second opinion, go at the same hospital. And she said, but I'm not having it. I'm not gonna have. I said, oh yeah, you're gonna have it. She was dead set on that she was not gonna have that surgery. And she had a daughter with her, and her daughter was between 8 and 10 years old. And I say, if it's not for you, it's for Allison. You're gonna have that exam. And so she had the exam. She's not doing well now, but that been years ago. But you do what's best. And I try to tell everybody. And the nervous part for me was before the surgery. After surgery, it looked like everybody want to help. But people coming to the hospital, they telling you what you do, what you could join. But before you have the surgery, this little thing in my head, I had 2 daughters, and I know my husband can't cook, he can't sew, he can't. I said, what my children gonna do? Lord, right. You gotta do something. And so he did it. And I wasn't afraid of dying, but everybody talking about the big C, nobody, and I didn't know not one person I could go to and talk to about it. And so that wow. was, and you said talking to someone, my daughter on her 50th birthday, she was diagnosed. She got the results back that she was what
2B3A
cancer. So she had
your sister Julie.
Yeah, my older sister. So she's now 9 years on cancer survivor.
You should have brought her on the show too.
I know, but she's in Atlanta and she works in a hospital, so she's probably still working right now at the hospital survey.
Yes.
So that also, Ricky, probably goes to the other point that Dr. Mo, even when we say we all should do our self-exams. So my sister and I started early.
Yeah.
We were doing our monthly exam. We were going to get our annual mammogram.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And in the midst of it all,
yep.
She finds out through a whole nother situation that there's a lump and that it's now cancerous, right? So you can't ever have too much. I think, Pearl, you were talking about the other pieces. So knowing sort of the girl tree that I'm with here with my mom and my sister, I'm the holdout that's trying not to join the sorority of survivor.
Club, right?
For them.
True.
But I'm trying. I'll wear my pin, but I'm not trying to. No, I'm with you, right?
She said she's not rushing this sorority.
No, not at all.
And can I ask you all? Did you get
to join either?
Did you all have genetic testing? Did anybody talk about her? Because Pearl, you were young. Mrs. Suley, you were young. Julie, did anybody talk to you all about testing the genes?
Not initially. We came to testing the second time. So in the early 2000s, my sister and I talked about what else should we be doing. And so we went to the testing at that point. So my sister got tested. And so that was an important piece. And we tested negative. It was, no bronchi, nothing. So it would have indicated through the test all was well, but that wasn't actually the reality. So.
And no, I have not been tested. That's something I probably will eventually do, but I have not been. One of the things I have to say, I'm very fortunate, as I mentioned to you, because at 29, you're not even thinking about breast cancer. And I wasn't really, I knew about breast cancer, but I really wasn't informed about it back then. And I did check my breast, but it was sporadically, so I know that it was just nothing more than the grace of God on my life that I would even discover the lump and then do something about it. And
absolutely right. You're right, because at 29, you think it's a cyst, you know what I mean? Right. And so many young women go, or let's start here, they don't go. And they think, oh, I just have lumpy breasts and that's how it is. I'm young, my period's on, whatever. Or they go and the doctor says, nope, you're too young to be here. You got fibrocystic disease. See you later.
You come back in 6 months, right?
Yeah, I was so fortunate. Again, Dr. Lamar Tyler is an African-American doctor. He was a saving grace. He schooled me. He told me about a family member who had gone through breast cancer. I believe he even said it may have spread it to the brain, but that family member was alive and doing well. So he really gave me hope in a situation, knowing that I didn't know what I was in for, but I always remembered the conversation he and I had. And because he was an African-American doctor, I believe that played a major part too. He made sure that I was taken care of throughout the entire process. And he spoke life into me. When I came back for my yearly exam, he would say to me, "My friend, you are going to live." And so and just him, speaking life along with my late husband and so many people. I had an aunt that told me, she says, "Oh, honey," and she's from the South. She said, "Oh, no, this won't kill you. You're going to be an old lady leaving here."
Love it. It's so
Hey, Dr.
important that
Mo.
you mention that, that your doctor spoke life over you.
Yeah,
Because when you listen to the stories and the testimonies of so many Black women with breast cancer, their doctors say, "Oh, well, you're going to die." Somebody told my grandmother each time she had 6 months to live and start making her arrangements. And, nobody knows this information. And it's, whether you got a white coat or not, you're not God. And I think having that doctor who spoke life over you is a lesson. And it's a conversation we definitely need to be having with physicians, because the numbers are abysmal, and what we see is so sad. And so you see these women and they're like, "Oh, well, the statistics are and the likelihood is," but we can speak life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
yeah, yeah.
for me, I do talk to a lot of young women. I mean, that's my family. Everybody knows, here comes Aunt Pearlie, or here comes cousin. You better have your mammogram appointment already scheduled. You better know what time, the date, and everything. So they know that around here, it's a big thing. This is what we do. We talk about these things. And since I've been diagnosed, I've had several family members to have been diagnosed. And then when people are diagnosed, yes, they do come and talk to me, but I believe it's so important, and I do show them how to examine their breast and how to go about the process, because a lot of times women don't know. And to get familiar and comfortable with their body, and knowing that if you do find a lump, go to the doctor right away. Don't put it off. Don't hide it. Don't be fearful. Um, and talk to someone about it. You know what I mean? Just do what you need to do. We don't have to succumb to this disease. It's not a death sentence if caught at the early stage, and even at the late stages now. And I like to believe, it's coming up on 30 years for me. And so we know that they've made tremendous strides, I like to believe, during that time period. Maybe not as much as we like, but I mean, they've done quite a bit. So I just don't believe we have to die from this. The only reason we die is because of fear, or we're not informed. And sometimes we die because our bodies, we know that, as we talked about earlier, genetically, we are different. We are late on a lot of things, our bodies. I mean, every disease out here, literally, sometimes we are late finding out about, right? And we do want to get to that point where we are early about everything. And the only way we can do that is having these discussions we're having today, right?
Yeah, and we're not, but it's so funny because we have come a long way, but Black women have not benefited from it. I mean, the incidence for breast cancer for white women has gone down, but it's not for us.
Yeah.
And we're getting it young. Right now, Black women under 30 get breast cancer at 4 times the rate.
Fastest growing
35.
demographic. You got it.
And so, and also, I still don't think we are talking enough in our families. I mean, thank God for you guys, because you are talking, and you are, I'm the one in my family too. Did you get what's your PSA? What's your blood pressure? What's your A1C? I'm always, paying the ass at the parties, but we have to do more of that, and our families aren't. And I think you guys are role models for other families to see how important it is to talk about it, because Miss Sully didn't get to talk about it when she was young, when she was sick at 29, right? 28, 29. And so, and I think that we have to be these warriors in our communities, in our churches, to say, it's okay to talk about it. It's okay to talk about it. It's okay to, bring it up and talk to men about it, talk to everybody about it. But it has to be a kitchen table conversation, or we're going to keep dying and getting surprised by this crazy disease at young ages.
Yes, and there are little girls who get lumps at 12 and 13 that have come in, in places that I've served, and and they're wondering how can 11 or 12 or 13-year-old have a lump so early. It happens. It's happening
is.
younger. I don't know
Yep.
if it's stress or if it's in the foods or what's
It's
going on.
hormones. It's a lot of hormonal influence, environmental influence. I see it because they come to see me, and sometimes they'll come and somebody tells them they need a surgery and they need observation until they get a little bit older. Once we rule out cancer in some of these young folks, but we see more and more the lumps, the breast development early, and we need to be unafraid to talk about it, and to, while we don't want to present our bodies as sexual organs and beings at a young age, because society does enough of that for Black women, we do need to use the names. We need to talk about our breasts. We need to talk about our vaginas. We need to talk about our body parts and not put that shame on women, especially young girls, that makes them not want to talk about it. Because I find that I see that a lot in our community. There's a lot of shame and a lot of euphemisms, and it ends up being a more sexual talk than a health talk. And I want us to change that language.
Yes, yes. I have 2 granddaughters, and again, I'm here by the grace of God. My granddaughters, I'm watching them grow up, and they'll get married one day down the road and have grandchildren, and I'll be around for all that too, by the way.
Yes, you will. Yes, you will. Yes, you will, Mama.
And they're 11. My oldest granddaughter is 11, and my youngest granddaughter is 7, and I do have a 9-year-old grandson. But they're growing up, and they're growing up quickly. But here's the thing: we've talked about breast cancer already. When I'm having events, they've helped me gather packages and put things together. So we're very involved. I didn't tell their dad until much later, when he's probably about 12 years old, because I wanted him to have a childhood free of worry. When I knew that everything was good, and then I shared it with him. But I didn't want him to grow up worrying. And I felt that he was at a mature state. And I said, well, what do you think about it? He said, well, what are you talking about? You're not dying. You're not going to die. So why are you even asking me what I think about you having you had breast cancer? So my son was fine. By the time he was 12 and I shared it with him, he had no worries. He was just like, you're going to be fine. In fact, he ended up writing a paper about me and sharing it with his class about his hometown hero, about how I had gone through because he ended up interviewing me, and how I had went through breast cancer. So, but I thought for him to tell him when he was 3 or 4 or 5, that would have just worried him, So
anyway, yeah.
Yeah. So at 12, I felt like it was time to share my story with him. But with my grandchildren, I told them right away about breast cancer. And I think we can, if we feel that the kids are mature enough, I think we can have those conversations really early with them, so that they can just have that and have that knowledge. I mean, the kids are so different today anyways. They're like old people. They're very wise in some ways. Their conversations are way beyond the years,
And then they're going to Google it anyway. Right? So, Miss Julie, when did you really think Julie and her sister understood your first breast cancer? Did you ever really talk about it with them, or did you just fast forward to when they were grown?
No, we talked about it, because that, as Julie said, they wanted to, share. And sometime at that time, you put the cover over it, and then you stick it inside the bra. And so I would sometimes forget about it. I'm not very large. So, and then I always kept a box of tissue in the car. So one day I'm in church and I look down and I'm flat on one side. And so I got up and got outside and got me some tissue and made one right quick. And people with a larger breast, they have a problem. But me, I didn't have no problem putting the tissue in there. And I came back in, nobody was the wiser. They didn't know what had happened to me. But with telling the girls, they, not only my nieces, 3 or 4 of my nieces that would come every summer. Not my daughters would go to Mississippi to them. And they would talk about, and they wanted to see who was the largest, and did you examine? And they would examine, telling each other to examine yourself. Yeah. So
it does pay to have a big family because my mom's from 15. So I have a lot of cousins and we tip the scale more girls than boys. And so as only young girls would do, you talk and you share. And because we knew my mom's story and we were a part of her recovery, right? So at some point we had to know why she couldn't lift her good arm, which was the right arm, right? And so that's what you open up. But then we also, I'd say, walked into faith because there was still fear of what nobody else was talking about. And, you only had the encyclopedia. There wasn't nothing else that you had, right? So
there was no Dr. Google back then.
no Dr. Google at that particular point. So all you got is whatever, book number 12.
Encyclopedia
whatever.
Britannica,
Yeah,
that's right.
That's exactly what it was. And so at the end of the day, we started seeing and understanding what faith in God really represented because we needed to know how to be anchored to know it was okay. You can't wake up every day and wonder, is she going to be there?
And two, I think that was Judith's reason for writing the book, because she's always been one to ask questions, and what did you do then? What did you do? What you do? And as my nephew used to say, what did you all do in olden days? I said, I don't know, I wasn't here. And so he called it olden days. Did y'all do this in olden days? No, I wasn't back here in olden days. And so that's
talk
how.
about the book. Talk about the book.
Yeah, so thank you, Ricky. Mom's right. So we have a big family, and so we've done our best to share the good news, as Pearl would say. We want it to be a moment of inspiration. Anytime someone's gone through the same valley more than once, they can come out telling you a few more tidbits than anyone else. And so the book is called Recipes for Joyous Living, a story of inspiration. And what's at the heart of it is stories about love, about endurance, about faith, and about triumph. And life is going to give you some ups and some downs and some ins and some outs and some I wish I didn't have, as well as much as give me more of what I did have. But how do you have joy when going through? And so my mom, by career, has been in housekeeping and cooking. And so she's been working for the same family for almost 60 years. So you couldn't get a better cook. So you need matzo balls. My mom can cook some of the best Jewish dishes in the world. But if you want some fried chicken, cornbread, collard greens, fried okra, we got that covered too, right? And so what the book does is it gives several chapters to encourage the heart, to tell the stories of what matters. There's a chapter on family. There's a chapter on our children. There's a chapter on sisterhood. There's a chapter on doing what mama told you. So anchoring us in our truth through her story. And at the end of every chapter, there is sort of the life recipe. What is it that you should take away from what did your mama tell you? What is it that you should take away from the sisters in your life? And then there's always a food recipe because we want you to enjoy the table and see it spread. And so I just decided that I have a lot of friends and they know that my mom is a prayer warrior and a faith walker, but there are so many other people that we don't know. How can I make sure that those who are going through know that God did it for this 84-year-old woman? He can and will do it for you, but you're going to have to do some work. And so it's an encouragement and hopefully inspiration that says, no matter what your valley is, you can make it. And here's a woman that'll tell you a little bit about it. And I put the cancer in the first chapter. So if somebody was dealing with hard stuff, they don't have to wait to the 9th chapter to get there. I came right in at the very point of it to say, we're going to talk about breast cancer, lymphoma, and mesothelioma. So she's had 3 different cancers, but had breast cancer twice. You got to wonder, why is that her story? But she's on the other side telling you how you can endure and thrive. and live a joyful life. And so that's the gist of the book.
I
I
love
love
that
the
it has
visual-
recipes because food is love to
Food
us.
is
I
love.
grew up
Food is
in the
love.
kitchen. You know, my grandmother said, nice young ladies know how to cook, clean, and play the piano. And she made sure we knew how to clean. She checked those baseboards. She made sure we knew how to play an instrument and how to cook. And I mean, cook. And it was a sign of love. And the fact that you have tied these recipes in it, this is bringing me joy just hearing about it. So I can't wait to read it.
I know, and I love the words on this. I love her cover, right? Look at the words: blessings, giving, sisterhood, prayer warrior, fried chicken. Muslim,
Grateful. Look at that.
grateful, great. And I love the pound cake on the mouth. I love this visual. It's
Cream
so
cheese pound cake too.
cream cheese. Yes, my grandma's recipe too, like that's the
Yes.
recipe. So we love that. But the cool thing is, so thank you guys, because Julie actually is sending me 20 books to give
Oh.
away.
Oh,
I-
that's wonderful.
So you see my email address here on the screen. The first 20 people who email me, Ricky@touchbbca.org, y'all know where to find me. The first 20 people that email me and say, I want to put book in the subject, I will send me your address. I will send you give you this blessing from these wonderful, wonderful breasties. And I know Pearl has some stories to share about food too. I know from my, but I know we can't do enough of this, you guys. We can't do enough of this sharing. And we all just spend a lot of time in the kitchen with our kids,
That's
Yeah.
right.
whether we work or not. That's where everything happens, in the kitchen, right? So
Yeah.
hopefully something rubs off on these kids, and thank God for, preserving our heritage and our food heritage, because it is love, Mo. I know for me. And
is.
I had to learn the hard way of, not to cook for people I don't love, because
That's a good point too. Now,
Right.
I want to ask Pearl about cooking and maybe changing some of the things. Have your recipes changed, and have the ways that you've cooked? And Mrs. Sula, you could answer that too. But
Well-
talk to me about some of the changes and adaptations you made in your cooking.
Actually, I have not really changed the way I eat. I mean,
Mhm.
I've always ate pretty healthy for the
Beautiful.
most. I love Southern foods, but on the daily, I eat a lot of salmon. I eat a lot of salads. When I got
Beautiful.
cancer, I was very healthy. I was very thin. In terms of exercising, I was much thinner. I mean, I was very thin back then, but I was healthy. You know what I mean? I've always, for the most part, I would say early on, probably in my teen years, I ate, junk food like any other teen, but for the most part in my 20s, I was eating relatively healthy. I think my big thing was when I was in grad school, there was quite a bit of stress. And I think that stress may have played a factor from me getting perhaps breast cancer from grad school. I don't know, it's hard to say, but I'm like I said, I've always ate relatively healthy.
That is rare. It's unusual, I think, to find, because we see more and more folks who have to unlearn some eating habits and some cooking habits. I know I did, from the ways that my grandmother taught me how to cook even.
Well, like my collard greens, I did kind of change that over the years. I use olive oil instead of grease, the Crisco or whatever. I don't use that. I use olive oil. I use smoked turkey as opposed to ham hocks. So there were a few tweaks there, but nothing major. You know what I mean? I still make my cornbread from scratch. I still put buttermilk, butter. But I don't eat that every day. So for me, it's not an issue. So when I'm having a lot of food with butter and buttermilk, and it's every once in a while. Candy yams, that's every once in a while. So you can do those things. And I tell people, you can eat what you want, but everything has to be done in moderation. I don't believe we're here just to exist. You need to enjoy life. And so for me, it's about, I love food though. I love food, and I'm going to eat what I want, but everything will be in moderation.
So
And
Dr. Mo, yeah, we're with Pearl, but we did make some changes. Because you
Oh, really?
remember on the stove, since it seems like we were in the same family, we had that little container that had that bacon grease that was
Oh,
left over because you didn't throw nothing out, right? So we don't have the bacon grease on the stove anymore.
Oh, yeah,
So
I
it's not
still
what
do. I still do. I'm sorry.
so you
Oh,
put the bacon
the
grease
bacon
in.
grease. And don't get in trouble. Don't spill it and don't throw it out.
And
Mm-mm.
don't throw it
Exactly,
out,
right?
right?
So-
That Crisco can, right? Oh, my God.
Yes, so we don't have the bacon grease on the stove right now to be able to fry that egg in, right? So
oh
some,
my.
some exactly, right? So can you feel the Southern movement? So we made some adjustments, and yes, we have fresher fruits and vegetables and things of that nature. So I've had to usher in a different memory, because what I used to eat is not exactly what we eat, but there are just some things you just can't change, right? So it just won't be good mac and cheese if you fool around with it too much, right? If you're gonna eat it, just eat it,
Oh,
and
speak
don't
on
try
it.
to do all of that. I don't know a healthy version of mac and cheese, so
No,
go
but
all
you
in,
just
but then
eat it, you know, you don't have to eat it every
In
day.
moderation.
You can.
that's
you-
exactly
I
right.
will say that the
That's-
vegans have really worked very hard to come up with some amazing recipes, and I'm not knocking it because I haven't tried them all. But you know, if I'm gonna have mac and cheese, I want it the way my grandmama made it. So
Right.
I
There
agree
is
with
no
you.
such thing as vegan mac and cheese. Okay, you can do all you want for the mac and cheese, but you cannot make, just don't eat it. If you're a vegan, you just can't eat mac and cheese. 'cause you
Love it.
can't
I
cook it.
love it.
You
Right.
know, I just believe my mom, she's never had breast cancer before. She's in her late 70s, more closer to 80s these days. And by the grace of God, I thank God that she has not, and I don't believe she will. But she eats whatever she wants. I mean, that she, you know, it's just some people are not going to get certain things, I don't believe. So you can do all the wrong things and still not end up with nothing. You know, you can do all the right things and end up with breast cancer. It's, I mean, I know some very healthy people and they ended up with breast cancer. You know
I
what I
don't think
mean?
breast cancer really cares about mac and cheese, frankly. It
doesn't
doesn't discriminate. It
Mom,
doesn't
we have to
discriminate.
realize cancer does not discriminate.
Does not.
Cancer
That's right.
You know, so enjoy your life.
Yes.
Eat what you want, eat it in moderation. That would be my thing. I would tell anybody, eat what you want, but don't eat the same thing every day. Don't have bacon every day. Don't have sausage every day. Mix it up. Have oatmeal one day, maybe sausage the next.
And eat the fruits and vegetables, you know, I think we all know
Absolutely.
what we should be doing. I think we just all, I eat ice cream, but I try to counterbalance it with walking 3 miles, or,
That's right. You get moving.
yes, I just move my body when I eat something that
Mhm.
is so good to me, but we have to live our lives to the fullest. And what I love about you guys is that you are living your lives to the fullest. You're
Mhm.
sharing your stories, you're helping give hope to all these young breasties of ours. And we're so grateful for the work that you're doing and how you're showing up. And Mo put the Amazon link to your book in the comments. I put your email address there. So if you want to book, email me. If you don't, we'll send you those links if you don't make the first 20. And whew,
Thank
you
you.
guys are just
Order it for your church group, order
Order
it for
for
your
your
women's
church.
group, order it for your
Yep.
family reunion. I mean, this
Christmas
sounds like
present.
something, you know, if you're in a book club, this sounds like the type of fun book that you need in between all the serious stuff, right? Like this is
That's
something
right.
that's going to give you some good life lessons and wisdom, and maybe everybody bring a recipe and, you know, cook some things, right?
Yeah.
That's
Mo,
right.
I think we should make a cookbook at some
Mhm.
point.
Absolutely.
Doctors and cookbook. We're gonna work on that.
I love it.
That's a 2023 project we need to put on.
2023.
Right,
That
we're
was
gonna
awesome.
take all your recipes, take everybody's recipes and like put them all into a book and try to
Oh,
happen,
Great.
send us a recipe and a story and we'll try to put it all together. But we are so thankful for you guys for joining us today.
And
Oh.
thank you all so much. And it's been a pleasure. Is one of my pastors used to say, it's a plum pleasant, pleasing pleasure for me to be
I
with
love
you all and continue to pray. As I used to end my message as the church clerk, pray one for another. For
Mm.
the effectual fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. That's what James tell us. And so we have to pray for one another, pray for our country. And then in the end, I want you all to, is a song we used to sing, hold to God's unchanging hand. Man change, women change, but God don't change. So we keep our hand in his hand. Everything will work out all right.
Well, amen. How can I top that? Well, these women are Proverbs 31 to me, both of them, all of them, right? Proverbs
Right.
31. I can't even say anything after that. So I just got to say, thank you for joining us.
God bless and good night. The doors of the church are open. I mean,
Right.
there it is. But we do hope it's been relatable, reliable, and definitely real. That's what we try to do every Wednesday night here on The Doctor Is In, is bring you something to your home that's going to be food for your soul, that's helping you through your breast cancer journey, help you feel empowered, educated, and and bring it all to God. And we're praying one for another until we meet again. May the Lord watch between me and thee while we're absent.
Right. Well,
One
breasty
from
love.
another.
Breasty love.
Oh, breasty love. God bless you all.
Bless you so much. Thank you guys so much. Mwah. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Take care.
Take care.
Buy blessings. Buy this book.